chapter 6, lesson 3. So we're going to keep on going through this chapter that is based on networks. Remember to please let me know if there is anything that doesn't make any sense in these videos. So what is the internet and what does it do? So the definition, it's a global network made up of interconnected networks and individual computers. So in the previous video, there was a slide that discussed the difference between the internet and the World Wide Web. So remember, the World Wide Web was the information system that uses the internet as a base, and the internet is the actual physical infrastructure of computers connected together that forms a network. That is the internet. So what does it do? It allows users online access to facilities such as electronic communication, information sharing, data storage, banking, video and music streaming, and social networking. So that is just a brief definition and what the internet allows us to do. Give some examples of how the internet may be used for communication. So you have Voice over Internet Protocol, or VoIP. So this allows users to have voice communication as if they were using a telephone system. So the voice is transmitted digitally, and Skype is an example of VoIP. Instant messaging. So communication allows real-time text transmission over a network, often the internet. So an example there is like Facebook Messenger. And you can get some news services as well. So that's organizations that collect a broadcast news stories for subscribers. An example of a news service is Google News. So these are some ways in which the internet may be used for communication. What are the advantages and disadvantages of using the internet? So some advantages, there is a vast range of information on the internet that we have access to. There's a global audience, so the internet is worldwide. There's immediate transmission of information. You can have access to free education, such as tutorials and resources. There are services that you can have access to. You can bank and pay bills, and internal e-commerce shops, etc. So these are some advantages of using the internet. So some disadvantages. There's incorrect information. So anyone can publish data on the internet. You can encounter unsavory behavior, such as cyberbullying, intimidating people, etc. Hacking can occur online. You can get viruses from the internet. Identity theft can occur, and there is also unsuitable material online. So these are some disadvantages of using the internet. What are mobile networks? So a mobile network is a wireless WAN that uses radio to transmit and receive communications from portable devices such as smartphones. They span a considerable amount of inhabited areas of the world. So examples of mobile networks that you might have heard of, there's 3G, 4G, and Edge. So these are just networks that your mobile phones have access to. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of mobile networks. So advantages. You can communicate and have access to the internet when you are walking. Mobile networks, what they do is they break down networks into cells which allow for lower power radio transmitters to be used, bringing energy and cost savings down. Multiple transmitters make the network robust, so failure of one base station only affects one cell. So you might have seen these towers around, so these are cells, for example, that make up the network. So if one base station goes down, only one of these cells can be affected, so every other cell that covers another area won't be affected. So that's one advantage here. Disadvantages. Quality of reception can vary. So you might have a poor reception on the edge of the cell, which may lead to interrupted or delayed transmissions. And the use of frequency must be planned carefully to avoid interference between cells. So these are disadvantages of mobile networks. So how do you set up a video conference? So we're going to look at this very briefly. So this was also spoken about in IGCSE. So what do we need in order to have a video conference? What hardware? So you need a desktop or laptop. You need a webcam to record a user's image. You need a microphone to record user's voice. A monitor to display the other participant image. Speakers to produce the other participant's voice. You need a network and internet to connect to the other participant. And you need video conferencing software to conduct and control the conference. So there are quite a few pieces of hardware. So most of the time you won't have to mention all of these, but just try to memorize some of them. So how do you set up a video conference? So it's continuing from the previous slide. So once you have all the hardware set up, what do you actually do next? So before participation in a video conference can take place, the user must register with a video conferencing service. The service will then have the software that a user must install. With the software running and the device connected to a network or internet, the user selects another registered user and initiates a conference call. The other participant may reject or accept the call. What must be checked before video conferencing? So before you actually participate in a video conference, what must you check before that occurs? All participants must check that they have a stable and suitable internet connection. If your internet connection is unstable, you could have lag, the images might be jumping around, etc. Microphones are inputting their voice and that it is at a suitable level. And you must check your webcams are positioned correctly and that it is safely and securely in place. They must test that the image is being inputted and that they can be seen by the other party. So these are just 3 things that someone who wants to participate in a video conference must check before they actually connect to it. How to set up a web conference. So this is different to a video conference. So for a web conference, before initiating a web conference, the user sends an invitation to participants stating the time and the date of the conference. This invitation often contains an access code, which allows them to log onto the conference. It also has a link of the network address at which the conference may be accessed. Users use the code and the link to connect to the conference when the time is reached. What is a web conference used for? Okay, so in a web conference, you may read a document on the screen. So in a web conference, you can share documents to the screens of other people participating in the web conference. Showing of a product can just be text-based where messaging facilities allow users to communicate. So in a web conference, there can be like instant messaging that each participant can have access to. So kind of like a chat, so they can talk to each other. So these are just some reasons why a web conference might be used instead of maybe a video conference. Okay, so they're just examples. What should be checked before a web conference takes place? Okay, so similar to a video conference, what must you do before you join or make or set up a web conference? So similar to video conferencing, the internet connection, microphone, and webcams are all correct. You must just check each of these. If documents are to be shared in a web conference, then a test may need to take place to see if preloaded documents can be accessed or if the text facility can be used. And documents are usually uploaded onto an online meeting room or accessed by a link sent in a messaging facility during the web conference. Alright, so that is just hopefully a brief description of mobile networks, video conferencing. So if you have any questions about these topics, please let me know.